You're good to go.
I call the GCC board meeting to order on July the 27th, 2021 at 4:45 p.m. Welcome, everyone. Roll call. Mr. Mark Anderson.
Here.
Mr. Harry Block.
Here.
Mr. Bruce Mandrake.
Here.
Mr. Jack Turner.
Here.
And Lily Campbell, present. All board members are counted and present. Thank you very much. And now, welcome everyone to our board meeting. Thank each of you for being here, all of cabinet, our superintendent, everyone's present. And we welcome those who are virtually with us today. Thank you for being here with us. So we shall now move into our regular board agenda for today. Any public comments?
Madam President, there are no public comments that have came in.
No public comments. Thank you very much. And now we will move directly to the superintendent's update. Dr. Cindy Peterson, Superintendent CEO, will provide the board with an update. So Dr. Peterson, you're on.
Thank you, Madam President. It's an honor to be here tonight with the board and cabinet and staff and all of our possible supporters and staff members and community who may be watching online. We want to welcome each and every one of you to the first board meeting of the 21-22 school year. We're excited to be launching the 21-22 school year. We would all like to have been in a better place in terms of the state, the county, and the pandemic that we have been all surfing across time, but we are where we are, and we're grateful to be here with another year to serve our students and our community. I want to take a moment and acknowledge the return of Ms. Omaira Reyna, who was formerly our Director of Business Services, who we are quite honored has agreed to come on board as our new CBO. We're very sad to see our current CBO, Aaron Thornsberry, leave us, but we know that he has made a decision in relation to a job close to his home, close to his family, close to his heart, and we want to support him in that decision. I think he'll still be here with us for a board meeting or so you'll still get to see his face for a bit. Definitely want to affirm Aaron because he has been working very hard with Omaira to ensure that she's prepared to take on her role, and he has agreed to be a somewhat long-term consultant as needed to ensure our success as we move forward. So the integrity with which he's leaving is definitely to be honored and affirmed. So Aaron, we love you. Thank you for all that you're doing. We're gonna have some opportunity somehow, whether it be Zoom or in person, to definitely celebrate the many years of service. But until then, we're gonna work you to the bone. That's our job, okay? You would expect no less than me to say that of you. But back to the beginning, we really want to say welcome, Miss Omaira Reyna. We're looking forward to your time with us, for being a part of cabinet, to serving our students and our community. So thank you for coming aboard.
Thank you.
Okay, so a little COVID-19 update, because what would a superintendent's update be without a little COVID-19 update? Sacramento County and Yolo County, if you are not aware, which are the two counties within which we serve, are experiencing significant increases in cases of COVID. Staff, meaning Miss Christine and Jason and myself, continue to try our very best to keep on top of all the many changes, including today some more from CDC, CDPH, SCPH, CPH, Cal, OSHA, there's too many letters, I can't do it anymore. Today's was the US Center for Disease Control, who let us all know that they also support the fact that we should all be wearing masks indoors, regardless of status, because of the high levels of transmission, particularly in California. That is going to be an interesting ride. I also was able to attend the Yolo County Schools Task Force recently with their public health officer. I've been in contact with all the local superintendents with which I have relationships regarding how they're handling these things, trying to get, as many pieces of information as we can to do what we need to do here. AXA Superintendent Council and other AXA resources have been a great support. I do, by the way, want to affirm Dr. McCormick and Jason Sample, who recently attended a 2-day retreat for AXA Region 3. Thank them for their service and for representing us well in AXA Region 3. We are additionally aware and want to be sure that you're aware, you're going to hear more during your study session item, that universal masking will be required for all students and staff indoor, regardless of vaccination status in the coming year. We recognize that there will be those that fall on either side of that decision, but we have no choice. That is what is happening. Not only CDC, US Department of Disease Control, but all the other entities have all come in line pretty much with universal masking. Again, you will get more from that from our experts, Dr. McCormick and Jason Sample, when they do their study session item. You're also going to hear from our experts, Omira Reyna and Aaron Thornsberry, later on the agenda related to the budget trailer bill language and what is known about the budget. But I will say that I am definitely budgeted out, having attended the CSDC budget workshop, the SSC budget workshop, the Capital Advisors budget viewpoint, and at least 3 AXA webinars related to the budget. At this point, I don't know what I don't know. There's so many numbers going on, but I know that Aaron and Omira are going to give you a good high-level overview of what has come out of the budget trailer bill. It is mostly positive for us, and that's a good thing. I do want to caution, and I know they will too, it's mostly good for us for a couple years, and then there's very probably a cliff out there. So we're all trying to kind of just do the best we can to manage that. More information from Aaron and Omira on that. Administrators Retreat is happening tomorrow and the next day. We're doing it in a hybrid form. We're hard at work preparing. When I say we, it's a lot of work on Jason and Christine's part. Heather Gold is involved. I know we've got administrators involved, and we really want to do a great job. We are trying to model for the administrators that a 2-day retreat can be done in a hybrid fashion. The best parts that need to be done in person for connection, and those that have to be more readily done through the Zoom platform in order to best protect everyone's health and safety. There'll be many health and safety precautions taken during the event, but we're excited to bring the team back together to start the new year. Our high priorities are equity, diversity and inclusion, coherence work, capturing kids' hearts, trauma-informed practice, social emotional learning, and capacity building, as always. We are also working with our incredibly esteemed consultants, Wendy York with LTL 360 and Lyle Kurtman with Future Management Solutions. We've been reviewing our priorities for our coaching and how we're growing and supporting our leaders to be the best leaders they can be on our sites. We're continuing to work with Hanover this year and have some work scheduled the first week of August on equity and learning loss. We're also in the marketing and enrollment stage for our new virtual academy for those families that don't feel they want to come back to masking. We also have started research on the 2 big projects we're going to do this year, which is writing the charter for the IB High School and the CTE seat-based charter. We want to inform the board that we have been given legal updates in relation to the Brown Act. And Governor Newsom has signed an executive order saying that our flexibilities that were allowed during the pandemic will sunset on September 30th. So as of the 1st of October, we will be having our board meetings in person once again. Unless something changes between now and then. But we are looking forward to having you in person in October. We will continue to live stream and record as we have been doing, but we will also have many safety precautions to ensure that our board is very well protected when they come in person. But we will be required to be doing that in October. And lastly, but not least, the Welcome Back event will need to be done, unfortunately, using the Zoom platform because large groups are not allowed to meet still due to the pandemic. The welcome back event will be on August 10th at 8:30. And we'll be sure that Ms. DeMarco sends you all the appropriate links so that if you want to be a part of that, you can. So just want to check. Dr. McCormick, Jason Sample, was there anything critical that I missed in my update? Got it? Got it. Okay. So with that, Madam President, it's back to you.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Peterson. Board members, any kind of comments, questions, anything for our superintendent? Seeing no hands. Thank you so much, Dr. Peterson, for your update. And again, as I state each time, for all of the hard work, and just don't see how you're keeping up with it, but we do appreciate all of the information that you're given. We see a lot of it in the paper, and you just kind of bring it right back to where we need to have it. So thank you again for all of the information and the work that you are doing. Our applause to you. And again, Ms. Reyna, we are so happy that you are here on behalf of the board. And Erin, you know, we're going to miss you tremendously, but we know that you're leaving in good hands and you'll be around if we need you. So thanks to both of you for being here and for the 9 years that you've given to our service. Thank you. And so, no other comments from board members? Seeing no hands, we shall move on to our study session. And the first one is in-person learning update. Dr. McCormick and Mr. Sample will be doing that in-person learning update. You're on.
All right. Good evening, board president, members of the board, Dr. Peterson. Once again, welcome to the new school year, and welcome to, once again, another opportunity for us to share with you what's happening in terms of our in-person learning. So there. First thing we kind of want to take some time to update you on is just what's happening with COVID. Dr. Peterson shared a little bit of this during her superintendent's update. COVID cases have increased in both Sacramento and Yolo County. If you've been kind of following what's been talked about in the news, in Sacramento County, some of the areas that we serve have been the greatest impacted in terms of the number of cases and their increase. And then just last week on Friday, the Sacramento Bee reported that in Yolo County, West Sacramento, and especially the areas where our students are coming from, are some of the hardest hit areas in terms of COVID cases that are happening. What we have done in terms of what we kind of call our community responsibility is that we've really worked hard to increase our outreach efforts to our families about COVID, about vaccinations. Just last week, our own director of community of school government and government relations, Mr. Terekov, worked with Yolo County to translate all of the marketing information about vaccines into Russian so that they're able to get that more deeper into the Slavic community for our families that greatly impact us. And that's been just one of the areas, such as going on to the local radio, a Fisher radio program, to share information about vaccines and again, how our families can be COVID safe. Today, Sacramento County Public Health and YOLO announced this afternoon, just hot off the press, that masking would be required indoors until the case numbers have decreased in both counties. That's following suit to the CDC announcement earlier that Dr. Peterson shared. And then the local guidance as well as the state guidance, CDPH, I know we're giving you the alphabet soup, now requires universal masking for all K-12 schools in the state of California. And again, that's regardless of vaccination status, all students will have to wear a mask as we return back to school this year. Finally, our efforts again to really be a community leader. On August the 19th, we will be hosting a vaccination clinic at Futures High School, the Rancho Del Paso campus, for not only our families, but for the community at large. And then they'll come back on September the 9th for their second shot. Our clinic time will be 3:30 to 7 o'clock p.m. And we're doing this in partnership with Sacramento County Public Health, with Twin Rivers Unified School District. And it's great to be kind of that community leader in this area for our families. Okay, Dr. McCormick.
Thank you. It seems only appropriate before we start talking about the next school year to celebrate that we had a fabulous summer program and served a large number of scholars this summer. I'd just like to affirm all our school sites for their creativity, their determination, their perseverance to make summer school work and to support students. Many of our sites did multiple sessions. Not only did we have academic enrichment, but we had some wonderful STEM programs and a lot of different ways to re-engage students. So it was a very successful summer, hard work by all, and I just wanted to make sure we celebrated that. Next slide. Maybe. Wanted to just share these smiling faces. We'll get you some new photos when we're back, but more importantly, we will be open for in-person learning when school starts on August 11th. Very exciting. Just looking forward to being able to continue to hear voices on campus, continue the great work that as we ended the school year, we were able to do on our campuses with having students there. Next slide. Couple things, we've already talked about several of these, but probably the one that is the most that I want to highlight here that you've not heard is the option for our families is full in-person learning on our campuses. However, because of the development of our virtual academy, if we have families that would still like to exercise that distance learning option because they either are not comfortable with the mask requirements, they just found that distance learning worked for their family, or just feel they'd rather, continue to be safe in a different way and are not quite ready to come back to full in-person instruction, we will and are continuing to enroll students in our virtual academy. And I think that's it. Unless there's some questions. Oh, I forgot about this one because I'm trying to block this out. So I've talked to you many times about our reporting requirements from AB 86. I was hoping they were going away. They're not. We're actually getting new requirements based on some of the extra components that I'm sure will be talked about in your sort of budget update. But not only will we need to be tracking the students in independent study and how we're meeting any families that want to exercise that virtual learning option, but we also have to talk about expanded learning opportunities and what we're providing for students outside of school, as well as mental health and wellness services, what supports and intervention, and finally, how we're implementing health and safety protocols. So we will be reporting that information every other week by school site to the California Department. It used to go to the Health Department, but now it is going to be going to the California Collaboration for Educational Excellence. So that'll be our reporting that makes sort of the answers to these questions public data. And I think that's our last slide, unless there's questions.
Okay.
I really am trying to block out that reporting thing.
And that's board members. Okay.
I have a question.
You have a question? Who? Where?
Yeah. What are
Harry, Mr. Block.
Yeah. What are we gonna do for our babies? Are we gonna see that they get vaccinated or not? Oh, the K through third grade, well, up to 12 years old.
So at this point in time, the vaccine, regardless of which one it is, whether it's Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, Moderna, is only for individuals 12 and older. And part of what our work has been is to provide the information, to educate, to share. Again, our hosting a vaccine clinic for those families and students. But once again, right now, it's an individual's choice whether they want to. So it's our job to provide the information.
And we're gonna let them come to school?
Everyone is able to come to school. That's why universal masking is in place, regardless of vaccine status.
Yeah, there is no vaccination status requirement for staff or students.
Okay, I know the colleges are requiring that. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes. Okay, Mark.
So we've talked about this before, and it's regarding visiting the campuses. So I understand the masking for staff and the masking for students. will we as a board be able at some point in time to be able to visit the campuses if we wear the appropriate masking?
So at this time, county regulation still has been that you limit the number of outside individuals that come in to the campus. They really want to limit it to parents, administrators, staff. I envision at some part of the school year, we will be able to return to that. But I will say immediately, probably not.
Probably not.
Okay.
I wanted to go back to AB 86 because I had a question. Do we have any idea of how many families will go for virtual learning, the Virtual Learning Academy at this point? Dr. McCormick.
If I remember right, I'm trying to think of our latest update. We had about 39 families, I think, that have reached out to us.
Okay.
And across, some elementary, some middle school, some high school. But I think those numbers have been increasing. A lot of it is the guidance has come out. I think families are starting to be able to make that decision a little bit more.
Okay. And the report that you just gave for AB 86, that determines what we do each time with the virtual learning. Is that?
It's actually for all of our schools. We have to report all that data, and it's the intent when it originally began was to be transparent. There's a single website you can go to and click on any school in California and determine at that time was whether they were open for in-person learning, hybrid learning, or distance learning only. And they've really transitioned that website now to be much broader. And especially now that we're open for everyone in California is open for in-person learning, then they want to know what kind of supports you're offering on campus, what enrichment opportunities, what opportunities are there for families to get sort of those wraparound services, as well as academic opportunities after school.
And that's every 2 weeks. It has to be
every 2 weeks. Yes.
Okay. Anything else, board members? Any other questions or comments?
I have something to say tomorrow. Get your grandkid at one of the schools and you can go visit.
Well, I could do that in North Dakota or into Michigan.
A little bit of a commute, I would say there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Moving on to our next study session. And thank you, Mr. Sample and Dr. McCormick for that update. Thank you. The next study session is fiscal and legislative update, budget trailer bill. And that would be.
I'm just curious, we've called Aaron the Mr. Business. I think Elmira's gonna have to be around a while before we call her Ms. Business. So you have to earn the title of that. I'm just saying. But anyway, the floor is yours, both of you.
Yes.
Thank you. So we have our presentation here. Let me get that up on the screen. So we've entitled this State Adopted Budget Update. Just a lot of the changes in the budget that we may have not included in our own adopted budget, and just some new information that's coming out when the state adopted the budget. There are many new categorical programs and grants that we're going to cover, and that we'll need to consider whether or not we opt in or out. Some of them we need to see. We're still waiting probably on more information and details, and so we're just going to take a few minutes to cover those with you here. So Myra, you want to go ahead and start with the increased concentration grant?
Yes, I'll go ahead and start. Good evening, Governing Board. So we're going to start by going over the LCFF components of the budget and the changes that are happening. So there's a 15% increase on concentration funding. So that's where we're seeing a significant increase. And the purpose is to increase the number of staff that directly impact student achievement. It is also determined, the funding is determined by prior year staff to pupil ratios at schools greater than 55% unduplicated versus schools with less than 55% unduplicated. And then the last bullet explains that there will be a new template to be able to report this information, and that's going to be issued on November 30th. Okay. So this is a loaded slide. Some of the requirements for this LCAP and additional dollars for concentration will have to be presented in a plan to the board on before February 28th. And it must include stakeholder engagement on LCFF additional dollars. So the concentration needs to be part of this plan. So we will have stakeholder engagement. We will have to increase staff that provide direct services to students. There'll also be stakeholder engagement for one-time federal allocation. So just like we do for the regular LCAP, there's additional stakeholder engagement that needs to take place for these dollars. Also, we will have to prepare the ESSER 3 implementation plan. So that's going to be part of this presentation before February 28th. And the plan must include how it ties back to the LCAP. Okay, so we're on the bottom half of the presentation. You can go back one slide.
There you go.
So all available mid-year outcome data required, data related to metrics in the 21-22 LCAP. So that has to be part of the presentation. And mid-year. And then all the actions, all the action items, there needs to be a mid-year update. So that's going to be part of that. The cash flow deferral. So the state's been doing much better in terms of their revenues. So you'll see that the deferrals that were happening in September, October, and November are now coming in August. So that's good news for us. And that's just the state's doing much better. New programs that are coming into place. So both Aaron and I will be talking about new programs that are coming our way to school districts and charters. So the Universal Transitional Kindergarten is the first one we'll talk about. The implementation will begin actually in 22-23, but the planning and the conversations of how this will roll out will start. Obviously, it's starting now. And this will expand the eligibility going back 2 months until TK is offered to all 4-year-olds. The class size for 22-23, which is the first year of implementation, is going to be 12-1. And then moving forward to 23-24, the funding, no, actually 22-23, will be 10-1. And then moving forward, it would allow parents to choose between any alternative TK or eligible programs. And then for funding, the governor has talked about increasing Prop 98 to cover the TK expansion and also covering the lower class size ratios for the kiddos. So part of this pre-K or TK implementation grant has three parts to it. So there's the planning phase, the professional development, and facilities. So I'll go ahead and start talking about the planning. It has a base grant of $100,000. 60% of it is allocated based on the 1920 share of K enrollment, kindergarten enrollment, and then there's a supplemental component, just kind of like the LCFF. You think there's the base and then there's the supplemental. So it's the same type of concept. There's 40% that will be allocated based on the kinder enrollment multiplied by the LCFF unduplicated rate. Some of the allowable uses will be state preschool or TK, obviously, for the expansion of that. Partnerships with other pre-K providers, recruitment, hiring, training, professional development materials and supplies. And the plan is due to the State Superintendent of Instruction on 6/30/2022. So that will have to be hashed out, and we will work to get that together. There are the two other pieces to this grant is the professional development, which is a competitive grant, and that's to attain credentials, permits, and to offer professional development to be able to implement this program and this expansion that is being asked of. So the facilities component is also a competitive grant, and it's to build new or retrofit existing TK facilities. It will not count against eligibility for state school bonds, and it can't be used for portables, so purchase or retrofit of portables. So that's one of the downfalls of this grant. There's also a match requirement of 50%. And the bullet right before that, it talks about a higher percentage on the state is prioritizing the LEAs that cannot meet the requirement or have higher free and reduced populations.
Okay. Special education, we're seeing a good increase in our base rate per ADA from $625 to $715. So that's pretty good news. And then we're also going to be receiving increased funding for students with low incidence disabilities. And we'll have to wait to see how our SELPA allocates those funds for the low incidence, and it's probably likely something that we will have to apply for separately based on our special ed population. One-time COVID, there's also going to be a one-time COVID-19 learning recovery funding. That's set at $564 per special ed pupil. And there's a deadline to spend those funds by June 20 of 2023. There is a one-to-one match requirement with those funds. That you cannot supplant, can't be used for legal cost, and it is related, it has to be used related to COVID-19 disruptions from when the pandemic began on March 13, 2020 to September 1, 2021. There's also going to be another program with one-time dispute resolution funding related to the pandemic for special ed at $125 per pupil. And that can be used for early intervention to promote collaboration, prevent disputes, voluntary alternative dispute resolution activities, working with families and or support organizations, and outreach to families with language barriers and other challenges. In addition, the American Rescue Plan Act will be providing increased IDEA funding in a one-time manner, and President Joe Biden has proposed ongoing funding to increased IDEA funding as well. So we're still waiting to, we'll be attending our El Dorado Charter SELPA workshops to get more information on this as it comes down to them, and how they internally will be allocating some of these funds out, and coming probably back to you with more information as it is disseminated out from the state. The Career Technical Education Incentive Grant, and this is something that SAVA has applied for several years now. And I think even CCCS has started to also start receiving these funds. This is a grant that we have to apply for each year for those two charters. And so after being flat funded for since 1819, the CTE Incentive Grant is increasing statewide $300 million annually, starting in 21-22. And so that's good news in terms of probably getting continuing to get CTE Incentive Grant money, and possibly even increased funding. So we will, let you know when we apply for those funds again, how that will impact us in terms of CCCS and SAVA. Educator investments. So we have the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant, and this is kind of similar to we had a grant like this similar a few years back, and what it can be used for here are coaching and induction, standard aligned instruction and literacy improvement, student well-being, and re-engaging pupils in accelerated learning. We will have to develop and adopt another plan for this funding, and it must be adopted by you as the board by December 31st of this year. Another program is a national board certification. So the state's providing one-time proposition funds over 5 years for school districts and charter schools to provide awards to teachers who have attained or will attain national board certification. And $25 million is earmarked to cover certification fees for first-time candidates. So beginning July 1st, the national board certified teachers who agree to teach at a high priority school, which is us, for at least 5 years are eligible for an award up to $25,000. So this is pretty good to incentivize teachers to come to high need schools like ourselves. Child nutrition, this is an area we contract and partner with Twin Rivers Unified and Elk Grove Unified to provide the services for our students. But some of these funds are actually coming directly to LEAs. And so we wanted to mention these to you. We have each LEA is receiving a base allocation, which so each one of our charter schools of $25,000 in one-time funds for kitchen infrastructure upgrades and equipment. And so after those, after the 25,000 remaining funds available will be provided to LEAs with 50% or higher, which is us, free and reduced price meal populations. In addition, there's some more money coming in down for training school cafeteria staff, and a minimum allocation of $2,000 per LEA. And some other requirements, starting in 22-23, the Universal School Meals Program will be beginning. And so each LEA will be required to provide 2 school meals during each school day to any pupil who requests a meal free of charge. So regardless of whether they're free or reduced or not. And so that may be kind of a shift for some of our schools. I think our SAVA sites only provide 1 meal per day. So we will have to increase that to 2. But for the remainder of our schools, they do already provide breakfast and lunch, and even some of them provide a supper. So so we're pretty good already with compliance and getting ready for that. And then there's some ongoing increased state reimbursement for school meals, and that would come down through, come to the agency providing our meals, so either Twin Rivers or Elk Grove. And then LEAs will be required to report by the end of the fiscal year, June 30th, 2022, how these funds were used to improve the quality of school meals or increase participation in the meal program. Community Schools Partnership Program. This is another new program and includes over $2.8 billion statewide to create new and expand existing community schools. And this is a competitive grant to apply for to qualifying entities.
All right. So just like we've been hearing so far, there's lots of new money, lots of programs, lots of reporting that goes with it. So I'll talk about two more. So here's the A3G Completion Improvement Grant. And this is one-time Prop 98 funds to help LEAs increase the number of high school students that graduate with A3G eligibility. There's 3 different grants. So at the bottom of each of these boxes, you see there's an A3G Access Grant, an A3G Success Grant, and an A3G Learning Loss Mitigation Grant. So you see that there's different criteria for different pots of money. So there's the A3G Access Grant is to let LEAs had less than 67% of A3G completion rate. And then you have LEAs that had a rate of 67 or higher, then those would be the success grants. And then students who receive a grade of D or F or failed, then those fall under the A3G learning loss mitigation. And then the annual requirement is a state superintendent of public schools must post a list of each schools and LEAs and each high school of the A3G completion rate. So that's a annual requirement that comes with these dollars. Okay, so A3G, this just kind of explains the difference between each of the grants. And so the way I kind of interpret each one, the A3G Access Grant is more of a prevention or to be on, well, that's not the prevention one. That's to be able to offer the courses in order for our students to be able to graduate with the A3G requirements. So that's just course offerings, making sure we have foreign language, making sure we have all the components that they need to be able to graduate with the A3G course requirements. Now, A3G Success Grants, that's more of a prevention, intervention. So that's what those dollars are for, is to be able to help those students that are struggling, ensure that they don't fail. And then you have the ones that did fail, that would be more like a credit recovery or those type of student populations that are actually failing and we're having to work to mitigate and to offer students to retake courses. And the reporting on this one is due before January 1st. We must develop a plan and show how the funds received will increase and improve the services for the unduplicated pupils. So just like all the other grants that we've talked about, it has a reporting requirement.
And in this one, we have until the end of the year 2025-26 to spend down these funds.
Okay, so the second program I'll talk about is the Expanding Learning Opportunity Program. So the purpose is to provide access to expand learning for all the unduplicated students in elementary. So this is a grant focused on elementary students. So some of the components or requirements or what it's for before or after school, plus instructional time equal no less than 9 hours on school days. At least 30 days, no less than 9-hour expanded learning days during school breaks. So that would be winter break, summer, those type of timeframes. It must conform to ACES program requirements. And any of you that have managed ACES know that they're pretty stringent on some of those requirements. So it's kind of following and mirroring that program. There's a 20-to-1 student ratio requirement for students. It would be 1st through 6th, and then 10-to-1 for students TK and CASE. So those have a lower student to adult ratio. In 21-22, it must offer to at least all unduplicated students. So make sure you look at the words that are underlined. So it has to be offered to all the unduplicated population and provided to at least 50% of the unduplicated students in 21-22. And then in 22-23, it must be offered to all students and provided to all who request it. So those are the requirements. Okay. And some of the funding structure. So this talks about the funding structure on the two top sections of the circle diagram. So for LEAs of unduplicated population of over 80%, they will be getting 1,170 per student multiplied by the LEA's unduplicated percentage. And they will receive it for at least 3 years. For LEAs that are remaining, they will be the ADA multiplied by the LEAs unduplicated, and they will receive a minimum of 50,000 per school. And then at the bottom, it talks about where it's priority, where the state is prioritizing their services, or LEAs should be providing services. So if we have multiple sites for a particular charter, then we would be looking at the ones that serve the lowest income, have higher, maybe free and reduce. And then there is the allowability to charge pupil fees that are consistent with the ACES guidelines. Like I said, it's mirroring that program. And then the intent of the state is to increase it for future years to 2,500 per unduplicated pupil. So you see the 1,170, it should, they're trying to increase it to 2,500 for future. And then this is not a program, but it's cost savings for the districts and LEAs charters of the unemployment insurance. So we've always historically been at a 0.05%. So on May revise, it was presented that the unemployment rate increased to 1.23, which is unprecedented. Obviously, it's due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So the legislator has heard the complaints and offered to a relief of unemployment insurance increase. So they have offset the cost, and now charter, we're only going to have to pay 0.50% versus the 1.23%. But there is no similar relief for the employee pension costs rates. So that's a downfall, but at least we're getting this piece. Back to you.
Okay, so charter school changes. As you know, the dashboard data was unavailable due to the pandemic in 2020 and 2021. And because of that, a lot of charters are renewed based on that data. When they're going up for renewal, and so with the state budget, they passed. And you probably may already know this, but charter renewals. So any charter school's term expires on or between January 1, 2022 and June 30, 2025 will automatically have their term extended by 2 years, which is good news. And then, however, though, with that, additional changes for charter schools include a moratorium on approving new non-classroom based charter schools. That was extended by 3 years out to January 1, 2025. And the right-hand side is more for districts. It's just how they calculate their funding from students that shift between charters and traditional public schools, and how they calculate their LCFF revenue. And so that net charter ADA shift is suspended. So just some closing thoughts and next steps with just an unprecedented amount of new categoricals that have come out just so quickly, just within a matter of just a few weeks here. We need to review further details as they're released out to LEAs and charters to determine our participation in them, whether or not it is it's best to participate looking at, all the strings attached, whether or not, what is the funding amount, and making those determinations and having those probably conversations with cabinet and with our schools, with our superintendent. And for those that we are participating in, or we're required to participate in, we will develop plans as required and implement these programs. And we'll also make budget revisions as needed to implement these new programs into each of our schools and calculate those budget impacts. So with that, any questions, hopefully, that we can answer at this point? There may be a lot of questions that we can't answer at this point until we get more information, but yeah, please let us know if you have anything.
Board members? Yes, Jack. Jack. You're on.
Yes. Oh, thank you both. It's, wow, I think I need a whole 3-unit course in the implementation and what these grants stand for. I have a question for you. They seem so overwhelming in the presentation that you presented. Do we need to hire specialized staff to really sit on top of these almost on a day-to-day basis? It doesn't sound like it's something that really any school district in California is prepared for. There really appears to be complicated with quite a few requirements of reporting procedures.
Who wants it?
I'm not sure who you're asking, but the one thing that I will say is we're very blessed with both Dr. McCormick and Jason Sample have both attended, the CSDC budget, the CBO program. So both of them are highly qualified to be supportive in this area. And Dr. McCormick was hired for a lot for her ability to understand, appreciate, and manage well-detailed plans, such as the many that we're facing right now. That sometimes is an area that she even enjoys. I don't understand it, but yes. Along with that, I will, on behalf of the Business Services Department, say they still have some hiring to do. So they have some positions that they're working on deciding, are those the right positions or not? So you may be getting a proposal of some kind in relation to different positions or additional positions related to the amount of things we have to manage. The other thing that you have already approved is an additional, I'm not going to get the right name, Dr. McCormick, a data technician who is also involved in helping to track things, which is a part of all these plans. So that's kind of a long answer, Jack, to say, I think we're looking at all of those components. And I know that Aaron, Omira, Dr. McCormick, and Mr. Sample and I are also trying to be a strong team of all listening to everything and adding value together so no one person feels overwhelmed.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do I see any more hands from board members before I speak? Oh, Bruce.
It kind of reminds me of a famous literary line that goes somewhat to the effect that it was the best of years, it was the worst of years.
Yes.
And I think we're, as a former CBO, it's always a blessing to get new money, but with the strings attached,
yeah.
I agree with Aaron's comment earlier that we need to take a hard look at if there are some of these programs that just don't fit that well and aren't worth the effort to try to do everything with them. But
yeah, not every dollar is a good dollar.
Right, and I would also support what Jack was saying, that if we need some additional support staff to handle all that maybe we just have both Omira and Aaron as co-CBOs for the next year.
I'm
That-
for it. I'm all for it. Let's make it happen. Yeah, if I could wave my magic wand, I'd be there with that one. You know, there are some specifics, like I'm concerned about the TK monies and the TK thing, because facilities, but you can't put it into portables. Well, how long is it going to take to build something? You know, there are some of those types of things where we have to really delve into it deeper, as you've said, Bruce and Jack. So I do trust Omira and Aaron and our cabinet team of Jason and Christine to be evaluating that. I have to watch myself because people know that I have an inner fear around money, and I want to be sure that we get every dollar we can get to serve our students. But I have learned from some past mistakes I have made to support what Bruce has said about not every dollar is worth going after.
Yes, thank you, guys, because I had written down as I was taking notes as Aaron and Raina were speaking, new staff to hire, because when I heard about the TK and the 10-to-1 and what have you, I kept thinking, do we have that many people out there who are even interested in becoming credentialed teachers now? So new staff to hire, Jack, was on my list to talk about. And again, you have hit all of the components that I talked about, that I thought about in terms of, do we need everything that's there? There is so much out there, and we've got to really think critically about where we are and what we really need to put in place. So,
and to add to that, you know, while I'm concerned about TK facilities, I'm also concerned about all TK students enrolling with their district, because remember, where you enroll for TK, you generally enroll for K1, 2, 3 on. So we would like to be people's first offering when possible. So we're kind of have to weigh those kind of strategic things with the rest of the package.
Yeah. Okay, seeing no other comments. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Omara and Aaron, for all of that information. It's very daunting and trying to figure out what is and what is not. So we appreciate all the effort. Thank you.
And Omira, congratulations on your first board presentation and on Mr. Business on coaching you through it. So good job.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very, very much. All right. So with that, and seeing no other hands or comments, we will move on to our next agenda items, which are consent agenda items. Adoption of the GCC regular board meeting, June the 24th, 2021. Adoption of the GCC special board meeting, June 25th, 2021. Personnel consent agenda, and purchases over 30,000. These are the consent agenda items for which I will entertain a motion. Yes, Jack?
I move approval, and then I have a question about two of the items.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second, thank you. Now we're open for discussion. Okay, Jack, which are the—
Yes, under personnel, on a national level, they've been, like Lily said, are there the teachers out there to fill the positions? Are we having difficulty in filling the staff positions that we have?
You know, I would say if you're kind of following the trend, it's a time of great churn for a great number of positions. So far, we've been able to fill positions, but it's still early because we are still getting notices. I think it is easier at an elementary level than it is at a high school level, especially for your hard to fill positions. You know, math, science, some of those. We are entertaining the idea of needing to have signing bonuses for certain positions if that's what's necessary, because the districts around us are doing that as well. So that may be a later proposal. Honestly, what we and I believe the universe is experiencing more is that classified, maybe lower paying positions are harder to fill right now. Okay, so paraeducators, many positions out there, lots of people in those positions, and a lot of competitive choices being made by districts to try to grab up qualified paraeducators. I think possibly the other area is our special education area is another hard to fill area. But I would say we're not ready to declare an emergency yet. We are doing interviews. We are having people show up for interviews. And we may have an update for you on that. I am not sure at this time that our churn in the various schools is different than any of the districts around us or different than what we've experienced. But we'll know more as we get a little closer to school starting. That's the thing with at-will employment. They can tell us whenever, right? So it's very possible that Dr. McCormick will work with our Director of HR, Ms. Laura Berrigan, to bring a report to you at a later meeting regarding, how many positions we had vacated, how many filled, and what our possible gaps might be. I think that would be informative.
Jack, you had another one?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that update on personnel. Yes, on number 4 on purchases over 30,000, I kind of lose track of the number of consulting groups that we have, Flippin, Hanover, et cetera. Perhaps at a future board retreat, we could have a kind of an update or listing in details on what the consultants provide and so forth, just to, I know I probably heard it individually when each one of these items come up, but it'd be nice to see what we have as a group. So
Yeah,
I'd like to see that on a board retreat agenda.
I absolutely think it'd be worthwhile. I think we talked about it one other time to give an update of what they have done, what they plan to do. And the main ones that have come to you that are significant are Hanover, who is doing both equity learning loss, well, actually equity learning loss and social and emotional learning. And then our ongoing work with Flippin Group, which is, of course, all about our Capturing Kids' Hearts showcase status and continuing that high level of integrity of application. And then LTL 360, which is the entity that is working on our inquiry cycles for academic excellence, which is all about really broadening the use of inquiry cycles and deep academic engagement across all of our sites. And we've really gone deep down into curriculum coaches, teachers, teacher team, and beyond with that one. And then the last one is Future Management Systems, which is Lyle Kurtman, who is doing significant and ongoing leadership coaching based on a number of assessments that we use. Real excited this year that we're adding to our WPI, which is Workplace Personality Inventory that we've done, I believe, for 7 years now. We're adding to that a values assessment and really seeking to understand how our personal motivations, if you will, together with how we are showing up in our role, how those affect one another, and how to best maximize those to be the best leaders we can be. That work and coaching is going all the way down across all 30 of what I would consider administration, which means all of cabinet, all of principals, all of vice principals, campus principals, and that team has gotten to be quite big now. So it's when you give 30 people coaching, it's going to be a large dollar figure, but it's very well tied also to the LTL 360 work. They work hand in hand to be sure that that instructional inquiry and instructional excellence is also about the leadership of that work. So I'm still going to be sure that you get a report, Jack, but I wanted to kind of give a Reader's Digest version.
I appreciate the overview. Yeah, I just think it would be appropriate, a more in-depth look at what they do and the type of programs, and maybe even a sample of some of their work and so forth, so that I only speaking for myself, but yes, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Now, Jack, I think you're speaking for the board members because we have talked about that and asked for more detail and what have you. So we will know exactly what it is that the consultants are doing with our staff.
And if I might suggest, because I really want cabinet here, because this will fall on Jason and Christine mostly, is what we might do is do Hanover at one meeting so we can go deeply into Hanover's work. At another meeting, we could do flip-in group and go deeply into CKH. And then at a third meeting, do LTAL 360 and future management because they overlap in some of what they do. And that way you won't be overwhelmed by information, but get a deep look at each of them. If that approach would work for you, I think we could do that well for you.
Okay. Any other discussion or questions?
Yeah,
We have
yeah.
a motion.
I have one.
Harry.
Yeah, I would like to pull personnel consent agenda. That I have an issue with that one compared to number 11 on the agenda with the CEO of business. Classified.
That's
I'm sorry.
not on the consent agenda item. Is it?
Yeah, it's on.
Oh, no,
on the
that's on personnel. When we get to that. That's not on the consent agenda item.
But the approval of that is on the consent agenda. So if I approve something on the consent agenda and then I go to the number 11, I got a problem with it. I don't know if it's a closed session item or should I discuss it in, the CEO of business.
You're talking about the chief business official, which
Yes.
is Omira, who
Right.
is replacing Aaron.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I hear your question. I'm not sure what you're saying. So it feels to me like you want to pull the personnel consent agenda and have it go in a different order on the agenda after personnel so that you can first
Yes.
address something under personnel.
Yes, on the number
Okay.
11.
Yeah,
Yes.
I do want to caution you that if there are significant questions that could not have been handled before this meeting, that we be very careful about the sensitivity around handling personnel issues in open session.
Right. That's what I was asking.
And as I'm looking at the consent agenda, we have 4 items under the consent agenda. And that's approval board meetings and the personnel agenda, consent agenda, and purchases over 30,000.
I think what he is suggesting is that item number 3 lists Omira and her date of hire on it. And he wants to talk about her under personnel in some way. And again, I want to caution that this is out of the norm and is
Very much so.
is a little difficult for me to understand what we're going to do here. So,
and I'm having a difficult time understanding too. I'm not sure what you're asking for.
I think I want to be sure that people understand, people being anyone on this meeting, that what you will find on the personnel agenda item are employment agreements that were made with cabinet, and that includes the new CBO, and that employment agreements are what the board designates to me to manage on behalf of the board, and that I am the board's employee and that everyone else in the organization is employed at my direction.
Yes.
And
Yes.
unless it's a technical item in concern with how the agreement was written, I'm concerned at the precedent we're setting tonight if we're questioning how that employment agreement was created or how it is written.
Okay. Well, all right. I just have to vote against it.
And I want to be sure that everyone understands that all 5 board members always have the ability to vote against something.
Against any item.
But I think that based on Harry's concern, I'm still thinking that he is suggesting that we pull item 3 of consent agenda, only approve 1, 2, and 4, go to
And then go to
personnel, and then
personnel.
come back to number 3.
Yeah.
What I'm
Let's
hearing.
do that. I think that would be the appropriate thing to do.
Yes, that
Pull
would
item
help.
3 from personnel consent agenda and approve or vote on 1, 2, and 4. And we do have a motion and a second for the consent agenda items. So I'm asking to amend yes, Jack,
I would like to amend my motion to
thank you.
move the personnel item to
Okay,
after the discussion of the position and the cabinet contracts.
And I would amend my second.
okay. So with that, we are now ready for roll call. So we'll roll call for items 1, 3, and 4. Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Harry,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yes.
Amanda, Jack Turner,
Yes.
and Lily Campbell, yes. So we will hold item 3, the motion carries. All right. So we will hold that one over until in business. Okay, and starting with business. Item 1, resolution to reallocate income for 21-22.
I would suppose this is Mr. Business's item. Aaron, is this yours? Okay.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So this
Okay.
item is similar to last year.
Mhm.
So we have the authority under the El Dorado Charter SELPA to
Yeah.
reallocate special education income amongst our schools, because how it is allocated to us from the SELPA is based on regular K-12 ADA levels of ADA. It's not based on any levels of need of special education students, or even the amount of special education students in each school. And so based on the expenditures of each of the schools and levels of funding, comparing that to levels of funding that each of the schools get allocated through the SELPA, I'm proposing the allocation is presented in the board packet, a resolution to reallocate those incomes as presented in the packet. And it's generally based on comparing the expenditures and the needs and the levels of those different charter schools. And this prevents also any having certain schools with too much carryover funding that cannot be spent down, and schools with having big deficits of special ed funding where they have to pull from their unrestricted reserves to fund. And so our SELPA provides this, and our SELPA also encourages us to not have carryover funds as well with the state special ed funding or even federal funding.
All right. Any other comments, discussion on that? If not, I will entertain a motion now for the resolution. And it is a resolution, so it will be a voice vote to reallocate income for special education. I will need a motion. Bruce?
I'll move
Mandrick,
approval.
move approval. May I? Yes, Mark?
Second.
Second. Okay, we have approval in a second. Any other discussion, questions, comments? Hearing and seeing none, I will entertain a voice vote on the resolution. Mr. Mark Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Harry Block,
Yes.
Mr. Bruce Mandrick,
Yes.
Mr. Jack Turner,
Yes.
and Lily Campbell, yes. So the resolution to reallocate has passed income. Number 8, item curriculum and academies. Community Collaborative Charter School Early Literacy Block Grant Plan.
I would assume this is Dr. McCormick's little area here. Yes.
It
Dr. McCormick.
is. So several months ago, I shared with you, and CCCS also did in their report, that they received the Early Literacy Block Grant, a K-3 grant. This is their final plan that they're ready to submit to the California Department of Education. Once you approve it, that's their last step to get their plan approved and moving forward.
It's one page.
What does it have on? I hear move approval. Wait, I'm not sure. I'm hearing background information or something. Oh, I'm hearing background information. Jack,
I move approval.
move approval. I need a second. Mark, second.
Second, yes.
Okay, any other discussions, comments? Seeing and hearing none, I will call for the vote on this item. Mr. Anderson, Mark Anderson,
Yes.
Harry Block,
Yes.
Bruce Mandrick. Bruce, you're,
Yes.
okay. Jack Turner
Yes.
and Lily Campbell, yes.
Before we
Alright.
leave this item, I didn't want to give the false impression this is little, because Dr. McCormick has done an incredible job, along with site principal John Campbell, and particularly campus principal Sarah Sheeline, and because this is on her campus. And I know that Dr. Heather Gold has been involved, and a lot of hard work has gone into this. It may look like one simple item, but it is not as simple as it
It
appears.
is
So I just
not,
want,
and when you read through
yeah.
it, you can understand it's not as simple. We did get the information on all of the requirements, so it was very involved, so thank you. All right, so with that, we are now moving to personnel. Item 1, one-time off-salary schedule payment. 1.5 one-time stipend. Is there anyone who would speak to that item?
Well, Mr. Business can speak to the dollar figures behind it, but the concept, Dr. McCormick, do you want to speak to the concept?
Sure. We wanted to have an opportunity to honor our staff for the change in how education has been delivered as a result of the pandemic. So as a cabinet team, we really thought about what would be a appropriate way to honor that work, and appreciate Mr. Business and working with our director of HR and really looking at some of what our other districts around us had been doing, and then putting a proposal together. So that was the intent, was to really honor and value the work of our all our members of our school teams. And this is the proposal presented to you.
Okay, and that information was given to us. I will entertain a motion for the one-time off-salary schedule payment. You received information in your backup, so I will entertain. Yes, Jack?
I move approval, and I have a question.
Okay,
Second.
second, okay. First by Mr. Turner, second by Mr. Block. And now we're open for discussion. Mr. Turner, Jack?
Yes, I strongly support this motion, but I also have a question. You mentioned the districts around us. What are some of the other districts giving us one-time bonuses or off-salary schedule?
It's very much aligns to the decision we made. It was nice to sort of do that sort of collaborative research to see if we were on track, and we're right in line.
We're okay.
So you're saying that the other districts are about the same as we are, one time. And we also noticed that some signing bonuses too for other issues. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, hearing none, vote. Mark Anderson,
Yes.
Harry Block,
Yes.
Bruce Mandrick,
Yes.
Jack Turner,
Yes.
Lily Campbell, yes. Okay, motion passes. All right, and the next one is the salary schedule revision. You've received information on that, so I will entertain a motion for, yes, Mark?
So
Mark,
moved.
So move. I'm looking for a second.
I'll second.
All right, Bruce Mandrick, second. Okay, we're open for discussion on item 2, salary schedule revision. Any comments? Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none, roll call. Mark Anderson,
Yes.
Harry Block,
Yes.
Bruce Mandrick,
Yes.
Jack Turner,
Yes.
Lily Campbell, yes. So that motion carries. And now we have item 3, job description, teacher on special assignment. Recommends a board approve the teacher on stipend assignment job description. Okay. I will need a motion.
Move approval.
Yeah, move approval. Thank you, Jack. I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, Bruce, that's what I was saying for a second. Now we're open for discussion on item 3, job description, teacher on special assignment. And we pull item 3. Okay, let's do this and then go back to item 3 that was pulled. Okay, any questions, any discussion on item 3, job description, special assignment on that item? Seeing none, hearing none, roll call. Mark Anderson,
Yes.
Harry Block,
Yes.
Bruce Mandrick,
Yes.
Jack Turner,
Yes.
Lily Campbell. Okay, yes, the motion carries. And now, item 3, personnel consent agenda item was pulled from the consent agenda.
No, not yet. I'm believing that board member Block wanted that after number 5. So we still want to
Okay.
do number 4, number
All
5,
right,
and
great.
then come
Thank
back
you.
to this
Okay.
item.
And number 4 was job description, classified school social worker. Motion, please. You
So
received
moved.
information. Mark, so move. Do I have
Second.
a second? Second, Mr. Block. Discussion, questions, any other discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, information was given. Roll call. Mark Anderson,
Yes.
Harry Block,
Yes.
Bruce Mandrick,
Yes.
Jack Turner,
Yes.
Lily Campbell, yes. And the last, item 5, employment agreements, GCC cabinet members. So this is the employment agreement that was sent out by our cabinet members, and you have received the information. I will entertain a motion to approve this item. Bruce,
I'll move approval.
move approval. May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Mark Anderson, second. Any discussion?
I do. I
Yes,
have. Well, I'm looking at the salary schedule and everything that's going on with all the cabinet members. Now, I see we hire a new person that is paid 17,000 more, 17, almost 18,000 more than the other cabinet members. I feel there could be some dissension coming along from the other one, since this person is new, plus they get a bonus stipend. You know, and I don't feel that how that came about. I just don't understand.
May I address it,
yes.
Mr. Block? Okay, so first of all, when Mr. Thornsberry gave notice and we went and began to search for a CBO, what we recognized is there are many, many county offices and districts looking for CBOs and many unfilled positions. And many of them are offering signing bonuses along with competitive salaries. We are struggling in our business services department to attract director of business services and other needed positions, much less a CBO, at a time when as you saw today, the budget coming down in July is incredibly complex with many moving parts. As I'm sure Mr. Mandrick will attest to as a former deputy superintendent and CBO, oftentimes the number 2 position in pay in a district is the CBO. because it is a very highly complex need in terms of the competency that that job brings. Also, in order to get the highly competent person that we do have, it was important to recognize the salary she was already receiving. So we weren't harming her and offering her a position here. And then to add to that, I will be clear that I had a conversation with executive committee regarding the offering and what I was needing to do prior to making the offer. So the other variable is that this individual works 10 more days than the rest of cabinet. So if you take the salary and add the per diem of 10 days, it's not 17,000 a year more in terms of salary. It's much more closer to the same. I think we did the math and the daily is like $5 or $10 a day difference. So their daily rate is very equitable.
And I do agree with everything Dr. Peterson said. We did discuss this very thoroughly. And I do know that there are many problems out there with finding people who can do the job and do it well and keep districts from going under. And we needed to have the kind of person with the skills that we have in order to do the job that needs to be done, as Aaron has done for 9 years, to make sure that we're financially sane and safe. And this is why it had to be done. And the executive committee did discuss this and give its approval because it's necessary.
Okay, can we afford it?
I beg your pardon?
Can we afford the money? We're talking about not being able to take care of the teachers and so far and this and that. Can we afford to pay that? That's my thing with the budgets and stuff, the way they're coming down, because we're paying a lot more money for everything that we, books, everything, all utilities, all that is high. Can we afford that?
We are and have always been very frugal in our number of positions in the district office. And we've also had a number of positions unfilled for time. But without a doubt, we can afford to pay these salaries. And without a doubt, we can't afford not to pay these salaries and not to have qualified people running our organization, or we won't have an organization 2 years from now, 3 years from now.
Yes, I agree. And with everything we've seen and heard from the budget, the finances are there.
I just pray we don't lose any more qualified people.
Yes, Jack.
Yes, I think Harry really has a point. It's unfortunate that, I don't know, maybe other board members were contacted about this, that we're in a bidding war for giving bonuses and so forth. I don't know if the executive committee you talked about it?
Yes.
I think Harry really has a point.
I think one of the things you have to recognize is that while I can, and the whole purpose of the executive committee is to discuss decisions of this nature, you can't begin to have serial Brown Act violations by having board member decisions have to go out to everybody and respond in that nature. And I kind of want to go back to where I started, but gently, and that is the board has designated to me as the superintendent and as your one employee to make the best possible decisions to run our organization in terms of cabinet and salary schedules and what salaries are necessary in order to be competitive and get the best people. We are doing our best to do that for everyone in our organization, including our teachers, which is one of the reasons why we have our 1.5% one-time salary that we're adding on. And we're always going to be looking at salary for adjustments. This is not something that was done as a mushroom in the dark. This was something that was openly done and necessary in order to bring us to the next level of excellence that we need in managing all these funds.
Jack?
Yes, there was a discussion about the bonus, the 1.5. We didn't pick a figure, but we did discuss the fact that other districts were doing it. My point is, it's just communications that This is a pretty big deal. Harry's absolutely right. I was not aware that we were in a bidding war for positions. I think your point may be made. I just wish there had been some prior notification. And without breaking the Brown Act, you can contact individual board members and discuss issues with them. So Harry does have a very significant point.
Okay, yes, Bruce?
I want to come back to the other position, and that's the daily rate, because when you look at administrative positions, principal, for example, has a much shorter school year than central office people, and 10 days additional time is significant, and you can't look at the total salary. You really have to look at the daily rate. Otherwise, and I ran across this all the way across management, if you wanted a teacher to become a principal, you had to pay them more than their daily rate as a teacher. And that made a number that looked bigger, but in part it looked bigger because the daily rate. So if this position has 10 more days to it, then it should be 10 more days higher in salary. So and when you look at that math, this really isn't a big gap between the two.
Okay. I think we have exhausted the discussion. And now we're ready to take a vote on, I believe it was
It's item 5,
item
employment
5, yes,
agreements.
employment agreement, GCC cabinet members. So we're ready for the vote. Mark Anderson,
Yes.
Harry Block,
No.
okay. Bruce Mandrick,
Yes.
We forgot to defrost it.
Jack Turner,
No.
Lily Campbell, yes. 3 to no, the item passes. It's a vote of 3. All right, so we're moving on. And the last one would be the personnel consent agenda item. Superintendent and staff approve the attached personnel consent agenda. So I will entertain a motion for approval of that. I do need Bruce.
I'll move approval. That's consent agenda item 3.
Yes, that is correct. Consent agenda item 3, move approved. May I have a second? Yes, Mr. Anderson, Mark.
Second. Yes, second.
Second. It has been moved and second, and now we're open for discussion on consent agenda, personnel consent agenda item 3. Discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. I will call for the vote on that item. Mark Anderson,
Yes.
Harry Block,
No.
Bruce Mandrick,
Yes.
Jack Turner,
No.
Lily Campbell, yes. 3 to 2, the motion carries. All right. And now we are into board comments, item 12. Board comments? Hearing none? Yes, Bruce?
Yeah, I wanted to just put my thanks to Aaron for his service. I don't know how many more times we'll see him, but he's really done a very good job in managing the district's budget. It's been some very, very difficult years. And I do really want to thank him for his service.
Thank you, Bruce.
Jack?
Yes, I want to say the same thing. Your budgets, I've been, reading them for years now, and you will be missed. And drop in anytime. You'll get lonesome if you're not driving, spending an hour or so in the car every day. So good luck in your future employment.
And-
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, Mark?
Can I echo that, Aaron? You've done an outstanding job. And I know that, managing the number of schools and budgets is a Herculean job that you've done. And Also, I want to thank you for your involvement with the Wells Fargo team as well. They have done a great job in that area. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I want to thank Aaron also, because dealing with 9 different charters and 9 different charter budgets, that's not easy. You know, dealing with one school and one budget is okay, but when you got 9, that's a lot of work. So congratulations on your new job, and keep the good work up.
Yes, we will definitely miss you, Mr. Aaron. I told you, AXA is gonna miss you. We are going to make sure that you get back in. Thank you for all of your work with AXA over the years that you have been here, and the things that you have done. We had a long talk when I had a chance to come into the office to see you. And we know that you will be here for Miss Amara when she needs a little bit of consultation and helping. And so thank you both for being here. We really appreciate it. Okay. And with that, item 13, closed session. Employee personnel matter pursuant to Government Code Section 54957. We are now getting ready to go into closed session.
I'm assuming Miss Melissa will send us to a breakout room, and then I'll lead that discussion.
Okay, very good.
Okay, you're heading out.
understand it, you're going to make me the host and then push us back into a breakout room. Is that correct, Melissa? Melissa, we are still streaming for the sake of the board, but we had an issue in closed session. So yes?
We are going to ask Lily to come back, and as soon as she does, we'll push you back into the breakout rooms.
She's here still. She's here.
Okay.
So just George is helping her. So push us out, and as long as I'm host, I can help.
So Dr. Peterson, we won't be able to make you host because the live stream follows the host.
All
So
right.
what we've done is, Madam President, we've unmuted you.
Yes, her screen is unmuted. Will it stay that way though when we go into closed session? Because it generally mutes all of us as we go into closed session. How about you move us, because right now all of this is being recorded, correct?
That is correct.
Can you make me?
I still can't move Lily. Oh, that's weird.
Can someone unmute Ms. Campbell, please? Someone, Melissa, Jason. Oh, there you go. There you go, Ms. Campbell. You should be unmuted. Okay, I can't hear you though. I am not sure why, when we moved from breakout room into here, even though you're unmuted, we cannot hear you, Ms. Campbell. All right, what I'm going to suggest, Ms. Lilly, is maybe in your stead, Mr. Mandrick could report out and then we could close up. Can we do that? What do you think, Bruce?
I think that's a good idea. We are coming back out of closed session, and there was no action taken in closed session.
Okay, do we need to have an action to close the agenda? I mean, to close the meeting?
I move we adjourn.
Okay.
We have a motion to adjourn. Lily seconds it.
Okay.
All
Do we
those
need
in favor?
all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.